to Let's Talk Chiropractic here on WYLN. I'm Rick Marticelli, and we have a great show for you tonight, especially if you like to travel, because that's what Dr. John did recently. He was on a trip of a lifetime that actually had some business involved with it, and we're going to find out that not only is Dr. John known throughout the greater Hazleton area as being an excellent chiropractor, but maybe even a little bit more so now, maybe worldwide. Can we say that or no?
Rick, I'm blessed. I developed over the years a close relationship with the president of my college. So when he retired, he was asked to teach in 2 different Japanese chiropractic colleges. So he's getting a little bit, he has arthritis in his hip, and he said, John, I like your presentation. He saw me speak in public. He goes, will you come with me to Japan? And at first I didn't want to leave my wife and my practice, but so when you have a good associate, Dr. Stacy, who said, go, I can take over your practice, and my wife who said, go, I can take care of the kids. So I am just blessed, Rick, that I can go to Japan for, I guess it was 9 days, to speak at these colleges and see the beautiful country.
And we're going to find out that chiropractic going to the next level in Japan, number 1.
Yes.
Which is good to see, and that's one of the reasons why you went. But when we come back from the break, we're also going to take a look at some pictures, learn about the culture, learn about the people, and through your experience. I'm sure you had a good time.
We did, and we took a bunch of pictures, so I think Bill's going to download them, and we'll see what he put on.
Sounds like a plan. We'll be back right after the break, and if you have any questions, we still invite you to email them to us at drjohn@epix.net, whether your topic be about Japan or chiropractic care.
Great.
We'll take anything you want.
Great.
We'll be back right after the break. Welcome back. You're watching Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WYLN. I'm Rick Marticelli with Dr. John Degenhart. Dr. Degenhart recently went on a trip to Japan after an invitation from the retired president of his chiropractic college, Sherman College, invited him to go over and do some education to the people over in Japan studying to become chiropractors. And before we went to the break, we mentioned that in fact, they are taking chiropractic to a new level in that country, correct?
Yes. I think, Rick, there are about 70,000 chiropractors in this country, and I think there's about 40,000 in Japan. So there's a lot of chiropractors, but up until now, it was just a 2-year program. The government is realizing that chiropractic is growing so rapidly. The Japanese culture, Rick, they're more into like proper foods, exercise, herbs, not much medication. So it's a different culture than America. So chiropractic is really growing, and they're finding that 2 years they feel is not enough. So they're standardizing, they're calling it. The government is forcing the colleges now to teach it for a 4-year program. So since chiropractic started in America, they've invited chiropractors in America that had at least 25 years experience, which is what I do now. I'm getting up there. So I went over and Tom's been practicing for 52 years. So I think they felt like let's get these senseis is what they call us, you know, their teachers, to come over and just teach them more about chiropractic as part of their curriculum.
Yeah.
You know, to see how chiropractic in Japan could follow the growth that it has in America.
So you left out of Harrisburg, flew to Detroit for a 15-hour flight to Japan.
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so I never, the furthest I've ever flown was to California. It was about 5 or 6 hours. And Rick, my wife laughs at me, but I enjoy the mental challenge of life. So my main goal was to not complain. I can't sleep on a plane. Can you?
No, I cannot.
Yeah, so after like 10 hours, you know, I could lean back and just sort of close my eyes for a while, but so that was enough. But so the 9 days there, Rick, was fine, but the flight coming home, it took me 2 weeks to get over the jet lag, but I'm doing fine now.
Well, let's look at some pictures, and then as we look at them, you can tell us what we're looking at and kind of take us through your whole trip, your whole 9-day journey.
I think we took like 200 pictures, but the first day we were there, Dr. Morimoto is the one college president, and he's a man who he gets his way. People just do whatever he wants. The first day there was a beautiful 85-degree day. This is in Kobe. And this is the oldest wooden structure in all of Japan. It was damaged where it was twice as wide, but it was damaged by a terrible hurricane centuries ago. Over there, Rick, they don't go by years. I think this was built like in like maybe 600 AD. So it's amazing just to see these structures. But there you go, and you look at the different temples. So this is one of their, a lot of them over there, Rick, are Buddhists. So this is one of the Buddhist temples where they go to pray.
It's amazing.
This was the group. If I can go left to right, I guess as people are watching it, to my next to me on the right-hand side of me is Dr. Fujimura. He's the one where he was a very quiet, humble man. He's the vice president of the college. Later on, we met about 40 of his students, and he said in all of Japan, he has the only title of samurai. Samurai is given to they have competitions. He's devoted 35 years of his life to practicing with the sword, the samurai sword.
Really?
So though he's built same as me, sort of, not real muscular, but yet when he held his sword, his forearms, you could just see the bulging muscles because the samurai sword's pretty heavy. So as he would, you could just see the muscles in his arms.
That is wild.
So then it's myself. The middleman, he was like he would drive us, drive us around. That's Dr. Morimoto. Next to him, he's the college president. They have a thriving chiropractic college over there. And then Dr. Tom Gilardi is the last guy. He's the retired president who was invited. His main goal, and that's how it worked out, though he was invited, he thought once they meet me, then they will invite me to come back because he feels international travel is too hard for him anymore.
Okay.
At the end of that day, they took us to it's a beautiful thing, Rick. Their tea, if you can see the bowls, it's a very frothy. It's not like our tea. Their green tea is like a soup, and you get this cup, and you have to rotate the cup 3 times, and you're supposed to tell the host of the house what a beautiful cup they have.
Wow.
So they're teaching all about their customs. So at the end of the day, we were hot, we were thirsty. We had some nice green tea before we went to a restaurant then that night.
That's a cold drink?
No, even that. They told us that in America, we had an interpreter because they don't speak any English, and I don't speak any Japanese, but they said you should never boil tea.
Oh, yeah?
That it ruins the flavor. So it's like lukewarm.
Lukewarm. Okay. Moving on.
So again, this is another temple. There are several buildings that in the same. Here you could I wanted to show, I don't think you could see it there, Rick. A lot of the women, I saw it in the standard speaker the other day, but they wear these little umbrella, I guess what, carousels they're called? So for the heat in Japan, you don't see many sunglasses, but all the women wear these little umbrellas to protect them from the heat. So I thought just to show you again the grounds of the temple.
Okay.
From there we went to a second temple, where it's called the Great Buddha. It's the largest Buddha, and that's this man is a chiropractor in Japan, and he can speak a little bit. It was interesting, it's almost like charades.
Yeah.
Like he would talk a little bit English, and I don't know any Japanese at all, but we would go to the Buddha temple, and here there were thousands of people waiting in line, so we just thought we'd take a picture before the Buddha.
And I understand at night you read a lot about Buddhism.
Well, remember, I would wake up, Rick, at 3 o'clock in the morning, so it threw off my time schedule. So when you have extra time on your hands, they gave me a book because I wanted to learn a little bit about. Buddha, Rick, is a lot about stay away from greed, keep your life humble, and if you're happy with the simple things in this world, then you become enlightened.
Okay.
They feel most people just always are after greed. And this is the one man, one of the bad things about the history of Japan, Rick, the shoguns, the warlords, they would come and attack each other's temples. So this was one of the protectors, a samurai, who fought off about 10,000 over a 40-year period. He killed actually 10,000 different warriors to protect the temple. So they have immortalized him.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I thought just to share, this is some of the grounds of one of the houses near there, just to show you some of the architecture, some of the, the plants. But a beautiful architecture, I think, over in Japan.
That typical architecture seen throughout the countryside, or is that just in places where it'd be tourist areas? Or
to be honest, when we took the bullet train from Tokyo,
which we'll see later, I
think the more wealthy people have this kind of. You would see now the more modern. It looks just like a normal house from America. Where
really?
It doesn't have the fancy house. So I would say this is more of the wealthier people in Japan.
Okay. Moving on.
Okay, so then we finally get to the college.
Okay.
And in the middle there is Dr. Kenji. He graduated from Sherman College.
Really?
So he can speak English, he can speak Japan. So he was the main speaker. And they had me then speak after he did about, remember I was telling you, they were very interested about, they want to do chiropractic on TV.
Okay.
But they never knew how, and there are cable stations over there, so I spoke to them about what we do here.
They know all about WILN, is what you're saying.
Right, they do. and again, over there with the doctors, it's like a class system. They don't cooperate at all. So they wanted me to talk about how at the wellness center, they were amazed that medical doctors invited us. So pretty much what I do in America is what they wanted me to talk about. But this is Dr. Fujimura. he has 10 different samurai swords. And this was the sword that he won his competition with. And I asked gently through an interpreter, I didn't want to sound too American, but I said, how much does this sword cost? And he said it was 1,000,000 yen. There's about 100 yen to $1, which translates to $10,000.
Wow.
So he wanted me to hold his $10,000 sword.
And you did?
Yes, I think from what Bill said, I think that's the next picture. Okay, that's still him. And he was very, Rick, there's a sound. I was afraid even to swing the sword that would cut off an ear or something. But there's a certain sound that these swords make when you, because again, if you can picture, Rick, it's pretty heavy. I would say it's about 20 pounds.
Really?
It's all stainless steel. But he would sharpen it. When he was done with his different demonstration, there's a way that he would put powder and oil to put it, so almost like a little ceremony just to put these things away then.
And there you are.
Right. He went in.
Our local samurai.
Well, I told him that my wife and my children, their goals are to become black belts. So he was impressed that Americans are studying, karate. So he said, here, you hold the sword, I'll take a picture for your son. So my sons, as soon as they saw this, they said, why don't you bring the sword home?
1,000,000 yen, that's one reason. A million reasons, should I say.
So
here we are teaching. The reason.
The following day, then, Tom Gilardi would show them. They do over there, it's called upper cervical. Their feeling, Rick, is if you just adjust the upper cervical spine, that the rest of the spine will compensate for this. So they're not, I'm what you call a full spine practitioner. So Tom would explain where to contact. Then they would break up in groups of 2. One would be the patient, one would be the doctor, and I would go to critique how their angle, we call it line of drive. So we broke up. That doesn't show the whole class, but just part of the class.
So there was there a language barrier here in the class? Did most of the students know English?
No, in fact, we had this Kenji, Dr. Kenji would interpret for us, and then they were later on when I spoke, they hired someone from the government. This guy, Rick, he would go to France and teach the French police on how to take away terrorist swords, or I'm sorry, knives and guns. So he was like a lethal weapon. He literally would kill people to take the weapons off them. So he was our interpreter.
So you were nice to him.
Yes. So we had to speak, you had to say like maybe 5 words and stop. And I was, Dr. Tom a couple of times, I'd have to go, because he would keep going and going. So you would talk 5 words, the interpreter would say it, and then come back. So it worked out well.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and look at some more pictures, the countryside, the train you were on. And if you have any questions, of course, we invite you to email them to drjohn@epix.net. We'll be back, take a look at some more Dr. John's trip to Japan right after this break. Welcome back to Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WYLN. Our show tonight is a look back at Dr. John's trip to Japan, where he went to that country to teach students in that country learning to be chiropractors. He was invited to do that by the former retired president of his college here in the States. And we have a lot to look at. Let's just get right to it. I think it's interesting that we get to see this look inside Japan. And let's just continue looking at the pictures at this point.
Remember I said, my interpreter is the man with the white coat on.
Okay.
He travels to Europe about 10 times a year to train the French policemen in counter-terroristic attacks. So he literally teaches them, Rick, how to manually, with their own hands, get a weapon off them and to literally kill the people.
He looks like a tough customer.
They take it seriously. Yeah, I didn't go by him too much.
Look at that. We're in Epcot or what?
So after that, Dr. Morimoto took us to see this bullet train. It's called the Shinkansen.
Look at that.
It goes 250 kilometers, which is 150 miles an hour, I reckon. Every 5 minutes, a train pulls up. So there's about 6 different types. So I just took a couple different pictures to see the different model. But real sleek. It is so smooth, and can't even tell you're moving in them.
That's amazing.
Okay, this is when we first went. Now, after we were done with there, we went to Tokyo. In Tokyo, this is Dr. Fumio. He is the president of the other college. They're very small offices. He has one table, so he wanted just to show me his office in Tokyo. The first day after Tokyo, they took us to Kyoto. And to me, it's the most beautiful. Behind us is called the Golden Temple, Rick. It's plated gold.
Look at
I think
that.
they say it's worth about $40 million.
Wow.
But it's surrounded by this, I'm glad he took a second picture, by this beautiful lake. And there's birds chirping and butterflies. And this is what I had envisioned Japan would look like. So it was a beautiful setting for a temple to be at.
That is amazing. Look at that.
Okay, that's a little bit closer. They explain how the first floor is a Zen architecture. The second floor is a different type of architecture. But I just wanted to show you the plated gold. I was trying to get some home to bring home for you, but I couldn't get any.
Well, I appreciate the effort. What is that? Look at that.
After there, they took us to a bamboo forest.
Wow.
You know, and there were acres and acres of birds were chirping, and you would walk along these trails, and it was just such a tranquil, peaceful setting. You walk through this to maybe about 100 acres, and then you get to, I think the next picture is going to be, there was this, a silent, that's the entrance to one of their main TV shows. He was a silent actor, and he had an estate. Now he's deceased, so they've kept it like a museum. So you walk through here into his estate of trails and trails of beautiful, peaceful gardens, Rick. And this was my best day in Japan.
It looks beautiful.
Okay, later that day then, I'm a little bit, Dr. Gilardi said to these two gentlemen, take us home, we've kept you enough away from your parents. And I said to these guys, or from their wives, I said, it's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, can't we, you know, I want to feel, so they said, we'll take you on this riverboat. We took a 1-hour train ride over that bridge up to this riverboat. And then you go, if you notice, Rick, there's businessmen in front of us.
Yeah.
Escorts. Over there, Rick, these businessmen would hire a legal escort.
Really?
Which is a younger woman. And so if you can tell in front of me, there's like 4 older men with like maybe 4 25, 30-year-old escorts. So they take them on like a riverboat, they take them out for a meal, and then if they want to, they could spend time with them later that night. So it's like legal prostitution that occurs over in Japan.
Different culture.
But it was a beautiful river. Later that day, they wanted just to show us one of the resting areas where you can sort of, they're very simple. Their houses aren't ornate, so just a small bedroom that you could sleep in.
Oh, this is in someone's house?
Yes, it was in one of the chiropractor's houses. I thought just to show him what his bedroom looks like.
Okay.
You know, back again in his office, he's like a genius, Rick. He developed, since you cannot take X-rays in Japan because of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there's too much side effects still from radiation.
Really?
So they developed their own way of detecting what's out of alignment through computers, and you stand on like a pressurized platform. But that's Dr. Fumio. He's the one who now has invited me to come back every 2 years. He wants me to speak to his school, which is in Tokyo, as to what's going on. But this is part of his office.
That's amazing. Look at that.
Okay, he later took us, he has a second office in, like, I'll call it the Poconos in Nagano, where they used to have the Winter Olympics. So on the way there was Mount Asama. That is a live active volcano.
Really?
So that volcano, Rick, over the last 2,000 years has moved about 4 miles. It keeps going left. So just to take a picture of the volcano.
That's wild.
The children over there, right before this, Rick, there was this boy on his bicycle bouncing along, full of joy, and it was too spontaneous. So I thought, let me just take a picture of some of the beautiful children in Japan.
And the lifestyle there is very hectic, even more so than ours. People have to work a lot, you said?
You know, I think every society has its pluses and minuses. And I asked Dr. Fumio, beautiful man, but I said, we were there during Mother's Day. And I said, what do you do for Mother's Day? Work. So what do you do for anniversary? Work. What do you do for birthday? He says, my wife understands. I work 80 hours a week. When I'm not working, I work in the garden, and I develop computer software. So they work constantly, Rick.
Amazing.
And it's not just him. So they don't maybe, he has a 3-year-old grandchild who lives in Tokyo. He's yet to see her. So I almost think that their culture, maybe they work too hard, and maybe us Americans, our young culture, maybe needs to work a little bit harder.
That's a good point. We're going to take another quick break. If you have any questions, again, we invite you to email them to Dr. John. The address is on your screen, whether it be about his trip to Japan or about a health-related problem you may be experiencing. We'll come back, wrap this up, and we'll try to get to some of your email questions on the next side of the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Let's Talk Chiropractic on WYLN. We reminisced a little bit about Dr. John's recent trip to Japan, where he taught chiropractic students in that country, and I guess in retrospect, quite an honor here. I mean, just your personal feelings to be able to do something like that, to take chiropractic care in another country to a new level.
You know, if you would have told me 28 years ago as a student of Tom Gilardi that he would invite me to teach with him in Japan, and then they would then invite me to come back, Rick, I would have, and again, it is an honor, Rick. So I pray that I can share the passion that I have here in America to what's spreading in Japan. So it was an honor.
What do you think was your favorite experience during your trip?
Here in Kyoto, we traveled to the top. It was 85 degrees, and Dr. Tom got a little bit tired. So we sat down, Rick, and had green tea, and he talked to me about Ronald Reagan, who used to work in a chiropractic radio station.
Really?
So for Tom Gilardi to be sitting in Kyoto talking about Ronald Reagan to these Japanese chiropractors, to me, it was the highlight of the trip.
That is wild. So you think you will go back?
I do. I told him we already have our vacations planned for next year already. So Janet, my wife, is probably going to be a black belt in about 2 years. So she would like to go back with my 2 youngest boys who are studying karate. So I think they would enjoy the culture since they know more Japanese than I do.
That's good. I'm sure they're looking forward to you going back.
Well, one thing we wanted to see was Mount Fuji, and it was too hazy of a day. That's 10,000 feet. So they challenged me, this one Bone Center, he was called. He said, come back in 2 years and I want you to climb Mount Fuji. So that's my goal, is to climb Mount Fuji with him.
We have a lot of call-in questions we got from email. Let's just do one and then we'll get to them next time, we promise.
Okay.
Real quick, 30 seconds, Doc. My 13-year-old daughter has migraine headaches at least once a week. Can you relieve that pain without cracking her neck?
Yes. Remember, Rick, a lot of younger people, was she 13?
13.
A lot of 13-year-old girls do not want a chiropractor to crack their neck, Rick. So you can lay the little girl on her stomach, and you can just gently, you have to figure out which way the vertebrae is rotated, and gently tap it. No cracking, no twisting. Headaches can stop with no cracking at all, Rick. So get her to the office. We'd love to help her.
Okay. And again, we have a lot of questions we have to get to, and we promise we will. Again, I invite you to email your questions in, or if you wanted to talk to Dr. John over the phone, you can give him a call, 454-2474. That's the number to the Degenhardt Chiropractic Health Center, located at East Broad Street in Hazleton. And again, Dr. Stacy will give her an update, everyone an update on Dr. Stacy when we get the news.
Okay.
They'll be the third, fourth to know.
Right.
Somewhere
Any
around
day
there.
now the baby should be born.
That's good. Well, we appreciate you sharing your trip with us.
Great show, Rick.
Glad
Thank
to
you.
have you back. And we thank you for watching Let's Talk Chiropractic on WYLN. We'll talk to you next time. Hi everybody, welcome back to another edition of Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WYLN. I'm Rick Marticelli, and isn't it nice that summer's here again? If you know me, you know that I'm very happy that summer's here again. I'm one of those guys who likes it to be 90 degrees all the time. And that's what this show is all about. We're going to talk about ways you can stay healthy throughout this summertime, because as you'll learn tonight, there's a lot of things that happen in the summertime that can cause your back, cause your neck to have some problems. We're going to learn some tips to help you avoid those problems this summer. And of course, as always, we welcome Dr. John Degenhardt to the set. How are you, sir?
I'm like you, Rick. I love this beautiful, sunny, warm weather, so I'm good.
I love it. It makes you just feel better, doesn't it?
You know, God must cry. People complain when it's cold, and then they complain when it's hot. So I prefer it to be warm.
I agree. Hey, before we get any further, how's Dr. Stacy? She have the baby yet?
She did. Let's see. This is the 4th. So on June. No, today's the. What's today's date?
Today's the 11th of taping this show. But
Okay, so on June 9th, she had her baby, I think about 3:30 p.m.
oh, good for her.
Little Dominic, 7 pounds, 14 ounces, I believe. I went to visit him in the hospital, and he looks beautiful. Dr. Stacy looks vibrant, so she's coming back to work in a week.
That's great.
So she's a trooper. We always tell her, stay home a couple weeks. She actually, Rick, she's going to come to work and bring a babysitter with her. So the baby's going to be at the office the first month or so while the baby, a lot of infants, they just sort of eat and sleep. So I guess she could check her patients, hold the baby a little bit, so it's going to work out great.
That sounds good. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about our topic tonight. When we come back, find out what you should do. Here's an example. You wake up in the morning and you're feeling you have a sore neck or something. It can be related to some summer issues. So we'll talk about that after the break, and if you have any questions, you can email them to drjohn@epix.net. drjohn@epix.net is the address. We'll be back. Summer tips right after this commercial break. Welcome back to Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WYLN. And if you're a fan of summer, this is the show for you, because we're going to give you some tips to stay healthy this summer, especially as concern for your back, your neck, things like that. And Dr. John Degenhart with us as always. And I guess our first question, our first tip, kind of stems from a question we recently got from an email. And this person asks, they have a stiff neck, and they heard that there's some truth to closing your window at night to prevent a stiff neck. Is there any truth to that statement?
There is, Rick. A week ago, if you remember, we were having 80-degree days, but 42-degree nights. So a lot of people, their bedroom gets warm during the day. They open their window, they go to sleep, but 2 a.m., 3 a.m., when this 42-degree air starts to infiltrate into the bedroom, I think, Rick, what I've observed, people have a sheet on or their pajamas on, but their neck is like a vulnerable, naked part of the body. So as this cold air, it doesn't have to be a draft, because that's what people tell me, well, there's no draft, there was no wind last night. But as the cold air comes in and the air temperature gets colder, I think it stiffens the muscles and it tightens, misaligns the vertebrae, because people say, right from the get-go, as soon as I got out of bed this morning, my neck was so stiff. And I went to bed feeling fine, Rick. So a lot of people, I advise them, number one, when it gets like that, I'll tell people, open your windows, but yet either close them almost all the way when you finally go to bed, so there's just a little cold air coming in, or else even close them where maybe the bedroom would be 72 degrees, because with the outside temperature getting cold, at least the bedroom's not going to get hotter while you're sleeping.
Okay.
So the advice is, because you don't have to be sleeping right by the open bedroom window. The key is if the whole bedroom just starts to get from 80 degrees to, say, I don't know, 65 degrees, it's just too much of a change, Rick. So don't keep your bedroom open window all night long if it's really cold outside.
How about air conditioners then in the window? What kind of temperature should you keep your air conditioner at?
A lot of people are like, now, this is a hotter week and the nights are warmer, Rick. So they should turn on their air conditioning full blast. I tell you, close your doors in the bedroom. Turn it on full blast. And then when you go to bed, either turn it off or turn it much lower. The mistake people make is they don't sort of plan ahead. They go up to bed 11 o'clock at night, bedroom's warm, turn on the air, they full blast it. Same thing as they're sleeping at night, this draft starts hitting, because most air conditioners, I learned, they are closer to most people put them closer to the bed, and then that's where there is a direct draft.
Right.
And so that's like a double whammy. It's the cold air plus the draft, and a lot of people, they like that draft blowing on them, but it's just too much of a draft on their neck.
Okay, so keep that, if you have an air conditioner you put in a window, keep it furthest away from the bed if possible.
Right.
Okay, how about fans then? Could fans blowing on you have the same effect, even though it's not cold air?
The best fan is that oscillating fan. So if you can get a fan that goes back and forth and sort of circulates the air, or I'll tell people to let it blow. But I had a kid last night, he was a 12-year-old, neck was stiff, and the father says, we have this fan 1 foot away from his face as he sleeps, because he hates to be warm when he,
yeah.
But sure enough, they thought it was something else. But when I said it's the wind of the fan blowing right on this little boy, he was 12 years old. So same thing, you can have a fan, but an oscillating fan is best. A normal window fan, just try to get it to circulate around the room if you can.
And point it away from you if possible.
Right, no direct drafts.
Okay. Something you see a lot, I guess, this time of year, right? With those draft situations?
And that's what's fun, Patients will say to me, like for example, a guy came in last week and his back was real stiff, and I said, did you sleep on the couch last night? How'd you know? Mm-hmm. Like they act as if I'm like a wizard. Yeah. And I'm convinced if you did it for 28 years, you just pick up on little things like that. So like this window thing, Rick. When you start seeing 20 people a week like it, then you mention it. It's not that I'm so smart, just that I've seen 20 other people a week with the same thing.
Do you mind if I call you the wizard?
No.
I kind of like that. The wizard. I'm going to write that down. Hey, you know what? It's probably another tip for people is there's only one way to get an air conditioner into a window, and that's lift it from wherever it was in some sort of storage. Do you see a lot of lifting problems in the summertime?
Have you ever lifted an air conditioner?
Several times.
Now they're bulky.
Yes.
And they're pretty heavy.
Yep.
So you tell me, what advice do you think you would tell people who have a heavy air conditioner, probably down in their basement, and have to get it up 2 flights of stairs?
I can think of 2 things. Number 1, don't do it alone.
Good.
Number 2, lift with your legs.
Okay. And that's what I tell people. Here's what I see so often. A wife has been asking her husband for 30 days to put the air conditioning unit in the bedroom before we get the heat spell.
It'll be snowing by the time you put it in.
and men will say, oh, honey, I was doing 10 other things on the list. But so they go downstairs by themselves. Mm-hmm. They could have had her or someone else help them a week before. And again, when they grab it, they'll tell me they'll reach into the closet. And again, when the air conditioner is furthest from their body, that's when they hurt their backs. If you can somehow get your body close to it and and keep your core lifting there. I think a lot of us can lift a 60-pound air conditioner, but it's when a guy then he goes to put it into the window, Rick. So get help if you can, but if you can't, then at least try to keep it as close to your body and lift with your legs, like you said.
And that's with all things, not just with the air conditioners.
True.
Probably a lot of people doing more active things in the summertime, more lifting.
This time of year, they're carrying grass cutters out of trunks, like go at the church cemetery or go cut their mother-in-laws, things like that, Rick. So same thing, I'll tell them, get that lawnmower close to you, get as close to the trunk as you can to put in the trunk before, rather than trying to reach with it.
You bring up yard work, and probably another great tip for people this time of year is there's probably proper ways to be working in the yard and things like that, especially when you're working with your hands right in the dirt and things like that. Notice a lot of injuries from yard work?
I do, Rick, and I think the big mistake people make, Rick, is they want to, I know myself, I plant my own flowers and I like to weed every Saturday morning, so they get out there and they want to get it all done at one time. But what I've done, Rick, I've learned the muscles that God gave the body, they don't like the same. Let's say you and I have to have 5 hours of planting flowers. If you stand and you bend, because some people have bad knees, so they can't kneel down. But if you stand and bend over, or if you kneel and bend over, either one is a strain on the back, Rick. So I'll plant flowers for an hour, and then maybe I'll go and pick up sticks around the yard. Then I'll come back and do another. So I will do, you change it up. As you change up your chore, even if you have to go inside and take an iced tea break, but it gives those muscles just a little bit of chance, Rick, to rest. It's that constant strain of kneeling, stretching, kneeling. That's what eventually knocks out the back, Rick.
And another thing we talk about, and we usually talk about it around Christmas time, is sitting maybe on the hard ground for a long period of time. Maybe someone is out there gardening and just sitting on the lawn for a while. That can cause damage, right?
Right, because when you sit, they have to stretch their legs, and there's a lot of people, they buy these, do you ever see, Rick, it's like a little, they can kneel on it, they can sit on it, but then they can also get up on it. And that's beautiful. I saw them at Lowe's the other day where it's like a little, looks like a thing like in church when you go to kneel, like a kneeler. But you can sit or kneel on this kneeler, yet lean on it to get up and off. So those things will really help people, especially if they have arthritic knees and things like that.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have a lot more to talk about. We're going to continue talking a little bit about gardening, more to talk about there. Here's the topic I want to get on, and that's traveling, because everyone's out there traveling this summer season. We're going to give you some tips to stay healthy in the process of getting to your travel destination. If you have any questions, drjohn@epix.net is the email address we invite you to send them to. Give us a click, if you will, and we'll answer your questions. Back right after this. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WYLN, and we have tips for you tonight to stay healthy this summer, prevent injury, if you will. And before we went to the break, we were talking with Dr. John Degenhart, also known as the Wizard, about some things you can do to stay healthy this summer. And we're talking in the garden, things you can do in the garden. How about those ergonomically designed shovels, rakes, things like that? Do they work? Any truth to that?
They do, Rick. I don't have every product on the market, but like I said, I like to do my own weeding and gardening because I think it just sort of relaxes me.
Yeah.
I get up 5 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and the kids all sleep until 10, so those there's like a little bend, to it where, so if I could weed my garden, Rick, and I'm slightly bent, but the tool does most of it, it helps you, because all of us, Rick, our knees are getting sore as we get older. So if you don't have to kneel, you can get one of these tools. You could be standing. I always wear gloves so you don't get calluses, and you can slowly weed that way, or you can prune things that way, Rick. So it is probably beneficial to buy those tools. If it costs $30, I still think in the long run, it's going to save you from having, artificial knees and stuff like that.
Good tip. Another thing I always notice out in the garden, and I see it all the time, neighbors and things like that, starting their mower or starting their gas-powered weed whacker or something like that, pulling and pulling and pulling, and it won't start. I know the next day they're feeling it. You see that a lot too?
I do, Rick. And this one guy will come in, he has a heart problem. He had a 90-degree weather, pulled his mower 50 times, he said. And so I told him, I said, please, in the future, get one that just, you can push a button, Rick. There again, it's probably $10 more, but I think people don't realize that. Is it worthwhile paying a little bit extra and saving the body? I've always felt, invest in your body, protect your body, Rick. So get push start machines whenever you can rather than cranking it 50 times.
Good tip. Let's talk about travel a little bit. What do you say?
Sounds good.
Okay, because there's a lot of things that can happen when you're traveling as far as destination, getting to your destination is concerned, and once you're there. So let's talk about getting there first. Long flights, you have some experience with that recently.
Right.
What can you do during a long flight to prevent any pain or injury?
People will tell me that their rear ends get sore, their backs get sore, and their feet swell. So I'll talk to them. And they said, let's say they have a 5-hour flight to Vegas. I said, what did you do? Okay, you have to drive, let's say, 1 to 2 hours to Philadelphia Airport. Once you get there, they sit, Rick, in that chair another hour or two, because you got to get there early these days for a flight. So my advice is try not to sit at all before your flight takes off. I personally, I always, whenever I fly, I get to the gate first to make sure there's no delays and it's taking off.
Sure.
But then if I have 45 minutes, if I have to go to the bathroom, I'll go get it. But I will walk, Rick. I will just walk around and browse. And as soon as I see that my section is getting on a plane, so my point is sit as little as possible. Because if you sit 2 hours to drive to Philly, then you sit 2 hours waiting for the flight, then you sit 5 hours to Vegas, you're talking 9 hours of sitting. And then on the flight itself, Rick, I will take my shoes off and I will walk up and down the aisle maybe every hour, just to circulate, and so that will reduce swelling of the feet. I don't get a sore end or a sore back if you can try to move around a little bit.
Does your body swell in the air?
Yep, a lot of people, they're from just being stationary. I think that there is some pressurized problems that a lot of them say they can't even get their shoes on once they land, because a lot of people take their shoes off. But so my advice is shoes on or off. If you just get up and walk around a little bit during the flight, it just keeps that circulation going.
Excellent tip. Here's another one, because I think we've talked about it before. Driving for long periods of time, and I'm probably break this rule as well, sitting on your wallet for a long period of time. Talk about that and what that can do.
I had a guy who called me from Myrtle Beach yesterday. They drove 13 hours because they hit bad traffic. They were waiting for 2-3 hours in Washington. But he said, my back's killing me. And I know this guy. So that's where they think I'm a mind reader. I said, did you take out the wallet on your left side? No, that's the side that's killing me. So they don't realize if you sit for 13 hours, and he drove the whole trip. So here's this thick wallet on his left side. If you can envision it, it's just he's gonna be driving like this for 13 hours, and
sure.
They don't know how it tugs the muscles, and then the joint goes out, and then you have sciatica. Now, so I have to try to find him someone in Myrtle Beach, but I can't. I teased him. I said, do you want me to make a house call? I used to love going to Myrtle Beach. So take out your wallet before you travel and just put it up on the dash or somewhere.
Excellent advice. So now we're at our destination.
Okay.
And here's the one that I always know. Actually, sometimes I don't mind sleeping in a hotel bed, but I guess some people do. And maybe it's even the pillows, right? Is there a difference in the quality of maybe the pillow in a hotel bed, the mattress, things like that?
There is, Rick. Some patients will say to me, I really love my pillow, and whenever I travel, I can never sleep. So I tell them, take your pillow with you. I know it sounds like a little kid taking a blanket with them, but take your pillow, because if their neck muscles, Rick, are so accustomed to that certain pillow, take it with them. One thing they cannot take with them, a lot of my patients who have a waterbed, when they travel, they can't find a hotel that has a waterbed.
Right.
So they'll tell me, I got to this hotel, and here's this king or queen size mattress, and it sags in the middle. So during the whole week, here's this husband and wife where the mattress is having them like gravitate towards the center. And what my wife and I have learned, I'll go to like the closet in a hotel room. She lifts the mattress. I will place under the middle of the mattress like an extra towel that they have, a blanket. Maybe a folded, maybe 3 foot by 3 foot. So as it raises the mattress, then it takes away that. Do you ever lay in a mattress and all night long you could feel your body,
sure.
and you're working against it? You're not going to sleep that well. And I think when you travel, you want to get a good night's rest because you're usually more active than you are at home, Rick. So put a towel underneath the mattress just to level the playing field.
How about pillows as well? Is there pillows you can use in the car? And I know you've talked about pillows before that can really give that neck that proper curve that we always talk about on the show.
Well, in a car, it's called a travel pillow, Rick. It's like a U-shaped pillow. When I fly on a plane, though I can't sleep on a plane, Rick, when I put that pillow behind me on a plane or even in a car, you can just lean your head back, and because what happens in a plane or a car, Rick, let's say you're driving to Myrtle Beach. Cheryl's in the passenger. She falls asleep, no pillow. Here's her head after a couple hours. So Rick's driving along, and then Cheryl gets to Myrtle Beach with terrible headaches. So with the travel pillow, that's what it's called. You put like this U-shape, and it's going to keep the neck straight, so it's not going to be able to go to either side, and it's going to prevent the neck from misaligning while you're driving.
One thing you got right, my wife would be Sleeping by McAdoo.
Yeah.
You definitely got that right.
She trusts your driving ability.
Is that what it is?
That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Well, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Let's answer a quick email question before we go to break. What do you say?
Sure.
We have a show coming up on this soon. This person was just in a car accident. They had painkillers prescribed and physical therapy, still in pain. Can chiropractic help what they think might be whiplash?
What I love about our work, I still think when you're in a car accident, the neck has to be misaligned, even by a slight jolt. Our society says take painkillers to numb it. Physical therapy says do exercises to strengthen the neck muscles, but the missing component is if the vertebrae of the neck is misaligned. That's where I feel that our niche in the market is to gently realign the vertebrae. And there again, it's so exciting when someone says, I tried 5 different pills, I tried 2 physical therapists, and in 2 weeks, I feel better here than I did in 6 months of that care, Rick. So that's where at the Wellness Center, we're all working more as a team. So these car accident patients will see the physical therapist, but then they'll see the chiropractor, and that to me is the best of both worlds for them.
Great. Quick break. When we come back, we have more summer tips for you, including what kind of footwear you should be wearing. Everyone wears flip-flops. Does that give you enough support if you're walking all day in a park, for instance? We'll talk about that after the break. drjohn@epix.net, the email address you should send your questions to. We'll be back. Teach you some more tips for the summertime right after this. Tips keep you healthy this summer. That's the topic on this edition of Let's Talk Chiropractic, and a lot more to get to. We don't have a lot of time, so let's get to it. Here's another one. Another tip is that, you know, in the summertime, people just tend to keep going and going and going, and they do things outside, and they're not getting enough sleep.
True.
You find that a lot?
Again, Rick, I think this time of the year, when the weather's nicer and people want to get more active, Rick, do you ever overdo it? Where you're doing yard work all day long, and then you go to bed and you just can't shut it off.
You're overtired, they say, yeah.
And I think that if you can say to your body, I'm a little bit out of shape, I should not be doing 8 hours of yard work today. So there again, take little breaks, pace yourself. I'm the kind of guy, I always tell my kids, one of my mantras is, work first, play later. So I'm always trying to train my kids, get all your chores done first, and then play. But yet at the same time, there's a limit to say, let's not overdo it so that you can get proper rest tonight.
Good tip. Proper footwear is so important. And this time of year, you see people, number one, in flip-flops. Especially, I always say, at the amusement parks or, just walking around. Do they provide enough support for you?
They don't, Rick. I always tell women this. If you're going to go, like say to church or somewhere you're not going to be walking a lot, then you can wear flip-flops or even high heels. But if you're going to be going somewhere where you're going to be doing a lot of walking, Rick, people, they take enough money, sunscreen, they look at how but I think their feet, they just think, let's throw in whatever shoes. And then halfway through, say, whatever park they're at, and they're walking for hours on that hot concrete, then their feet are killing them, Rick. And I've seen long-term plantar fasciitis, tendonitis, all these itises, inflammations of the feet. So take care of your feet. Wear a good arch support. They have sandals now that have orthotics built in them. I always wear white socks and sneakers because I just think it's more cushioning for my feet. So flip-flops are fine around the house, but not if you're going to be walking in a park like all day long.
Here's another thing, and you say around the house, but I'm probably just as guilty as any, and that's just going barefoot around the house. Is just walking around your house on a regular couple hours every day, could that do some damage?
It depends. For example, if you have carpeting throughout your entire house, then going barefoot is fine. This is the time of year, part of my analysis is I check the length of their feet. And so many people have literally cracks in their heels and they're bleeding. And when I ask them, sure enough, they have a hardwood floor, they have a tile kitchen, so they're walking all day long barefoot. So again, if your feet are being pounded all day long, Rick, on something hard like that, at least put lotion on them every night. There's different creams you could buy, but don't let your heels crack from going barefoot around the house all day long.
Arch problems too, I guess, and things
True,
like that.
You get flat feet, so that's why I said, Rick, I would think, I'm not in the habit much of doing it. I guess I wasn't raised that way. We always sort of wore something, but it's good at least to wear different shoes like we talked about before, just to get some arch support. It doesn't have to be real warm to keep cool, but arch support's important.
Okay, great tips tonight.
Practical tips. I think this time is something for the beautiful summer.
I totally agree. Some people can do every day, and that's what it's all about. And if you want to get in touch with Dr. John Degenhart, we invite you to give him a call. 454-2474 is the phone number at the Degenhart Chiropractic Health Center. That's located on East Broad Street in Hazleton, if you'd like to stop by and visit as well. And we thank you for joining us, as always.
Thank you, Rick. Enjoy the beautiful weather, buddy.
Enjoy the beautiful summer. I know I will, and I hope you do as well. And we'll see you next time on Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WYLN. chiropractic for children? I mean, could it really be beneficial to an infant or a little baby? I mean, that's what we're going to talk about tonight on this edition of Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WILN. I'm Rick Marticelli. You know, in shows past, we've talked about how chiropractic can be good for seniors or middle-aged folks, or people of all ages, but we've never really talked about infants and children. And that's the topic of tonight's show. And we're going to find out if it's safe, why they need it to begin with, and we're actually going to see an adjustment. We welcome to the show Dr. Stacy Sando, our expert on this topic tonight.
Yeah, I should be by now.
You should be, especially because this is the first time we're talking to you since you had a new little one, right?
Right.
Tell us about that. Everyone wants to know.
I'm so excited to be back, you know, sharing my experience with everybody in the audience tonight. I had my son Dominic 2 months ago, and you know, it dawned on me, my first show back, Dr. John's away, what should I talk about? And I thought, why not talk about adjusting infants and why there's such a need for chiropractic care with children and infants.
It's a pretty cool topic, and not only will we talk about it, but we'll actually see it. And we're going to do an adjustment here on Dominic in a couple minutes on the show, and we'll actually see what happens. First of all, we have to understand why it's necessary, and we're going to talk about that after the break. So if you have any questions, we invite you to email them to drjohn@epix.net. That's drjohn@epix.net. And we'll get into it right after this. We'll find out why chiropractic beneficial for little children right after this. Hi everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WILN. If you're a parent of a newborn or a child, even if you're a grandparent and you have little ones running around the house, this show's for you because we're going to talk about how chiropractic can be beneficial to those little people, if you will. And kind of I want to talk with you to get started is how you got interested in this, because I know you're a parent of 3 now.
Right.
But was there an interest in adjusting children even before you were a parent for you?
Yeah, I think it started when I was a child. You know, I think we've said before on the show that I've always wanted to be a chiropractor. Even when I was little, I got my first adjustment. I was 6 years old, I think. And Dr. John gave me my first adjustment.
Oh, yeah?
So, you know, from that age on, always wanting to be a chiropractor and then going to school and taking pediatric adjusting classes, you know, that were part of the curriculum, I chose to, you know, kind of go a little further with it. I remember when my sister had her baby, the first baby in the family that was born, I drove home from school that day and made it there late at night, stopped at the hospital, and I was holding this little tiny precious baby in my hands, and I thought to myself, how would anybody know if this child was subluxated, you know, if he had a misalignment in his spine? He can't tell you.
Yeah.
You know, nobody could speak for this baby. So I asked her if I can check him, and I did, you know, and I was telling her what was going on. And she was amazed. How can a baby be misaligned? You know, he's only a day old. Is it possible? But it definitely is.
So you get special education in school for children?
Sure, they do have special classes that they teach you, and you know, you practice on little dolls first, and then they actually bring children in, and everyone's goal in our clinic in the school was to try and get a family with children, so you know, you can learn that way too, and it's an amazing process.
Well, honestly, I guess when people think about chiropractic, they think about adults, number one. Number two, they think about headaches, they think about back pain. But how does that tie back to a child, I guess? Why does even a child need this to begin with?
Well, it's kind of all about prevention, right? You know, you didn't wake up one day and just had headaches caused by your neck being out of alignment, or you didn't wake up one day and ended up with 3 disc herniations in your back. I think we've talked about the show a number of times that things happen over time, and they've actually found that by 17 years of age, a child can have 7,000 traumas. Whether, you know, you think about children, even infants, you're taking the onesie off and their head whips back a little bit, or you know, you're holding them on their shoulder and their head whips back a little bit. You change their diaper and you're bending their legs up all the way, you know. That's one way a child can get subluxated, besides what happens in the womb. And also toddlers, you know, on the monkey bars, running headfirst into the couch like I used to do, or you know, sliding down the steps.
Even the delivery process, could that cause a subluxation?
Yes, it definitely can. And I think any woman that goes through, you know, childbirth could really understand that, because it is a traumatic experience for the baby. The mother's pelvis has to crack you know, so the baby's head can fit through, and when the baby starts coming through, the doctor actually twists and catches the baby. So there is a lot of pressure on the neck, and the way it is, if the cord is wrapped around the neck, that also puts more direct pressure on the upper cervical spine, which we've talked about too is very important, just because of the blood supply to the brain and the nerve supply.
Another thing I'm thinking of, and you kind of touched on it before, and that's like, how would anyone know if there's something wrong with the child? So is this more of a preventative thing, or are there things parents could look out for that maybe could be a warning sign that maybe something is wrong? You know what I'm getting at?
Sure, exactly. There are warning signs, and I think even with my own son, I noticed in the beginning, I'd put him in his car seat and his head would go this way. And we'd prop his head up, it would go back down. So, you know, that's one side. If the head's always falling to one side or resting to one side, that's one sign. Children with colic, they can have misalignments. GERD, where they're having reflux, they have misalignments most of the time. You know, there's many symptoms with infants in that area. We've also seen children in our office that have torticollis, which is when the muscle on one side of the neck is so tight that their head is actually positioned in a twisted manner. A couple adjustments, 3 adjustments, and their head is straight. You know, they're laughing and gooing like a normal child, like a child without a subluxation should do.
Let's talk a little bit about how the adjustment itself differs from what you would do to an adult. If you can talk through it. I know we'll see the adjustment later on Dr. Stacy's new son, but let's talk a little bit about what actually you're doing differently than if you had an adult on the table.
Well, first of all, the baby can't speak, which we've talked about. So, you know, the palpation is, the feeling of the spine or the palpation is a little bit more in depth, and sometimes we go through range of motion with the baby. The adjustment itself, you would think, we've always talked about in our office how we like to be gentle. Well, with adjustment with a child is even more gentle. You know, you don't have to crack a baby's spine because some of the bones in the spine are cartilage. They're not fully formed, so you can't really crack it. They're mostly pressure points and holds, sustained holds on the baby.
Is this safe? I mean, there's probably a lot of parents out there thinking, I don't want anyone touching my baby like that. That's probably the biggest hurdle to get across here.
Right.
How safe is it? Talk about safety a little bit.
It is very, extremely safe. Trust me, I would not do this on my own child if it wasn't safe. I am a little bit of a fanatic of a mother. But no. I adjusted Dominic the second he was born. The cord wasn't even cut. My husband wasn't done cutting the cord. They propped him up in my arms, and I checked his spine and adjusted him. The same thing with both of my children. So it is extremely safe. Like I said, you're not twisting and turning the baby. It's probably safer than half the times when people change the baby's clothes. You know.
But are they more fragile than an adult? In some regards?
In some regards they are, and in some regards it's almost better because they're more flexible. So they can take a little bit more motion than an adult could because they have that buoyancy in their spine. But
so does the adjustment hold on them better?
Yes, well, and there's a difference there as well, that the adjustment itself, you don't always need to adjust a baby. You know, they might come in and you might find a little bit of a misalignment, but you leave it go for like, you check them again in a week and it's gone because the bone can move in and out. So, and we've said this before also, you know, the job of a good chiropractor is to know when to adjust and when not to adjust.
Right. You see a lot of children in the office?
We see quite a few, yes. And it's great to see them. It is.
Is it a common thing? Do all chiropractors see children? Is
I
it a
think
specialty of yours? Or?
I know all chiropractors would love to see children. I think I could speak for most chiropractors out there. But I would like to specialize my practice as much as I can with children.
That's pretty neat. So I guess we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll take a look at the adjustment, huh?
Sure.
It'll be pretty cool. We're going to take a look at an adjustment on a 2-month-old. Yeah, you're going to see, it's pretty cool. You're going to see right here in front of you, and you can see that not a big deal. It's not going to be painful, not going to be dangerous at all. And if you have any questions about it, we certainly invite you to email them to us. Here's the address, drjohn@epix.net. There's the address on your screen. Anytime about any questions about anything that has to do with chiropractic, we'd be glad to have them. 2-month-old Dominic Sando coming up. I'm sorry. You're right. Coming back right after this. Stay tuned. Hi everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk Chiropractic here on WILN, and topic of our show tonight is chiropractic as it relates to children and infants. We're talking about why it's beneficial for for a child to be adjusted by a chiropractor. And right now we're going to actually show you what it looks like. Making his television debut, Dominic Catrone, 2 months old.
Yes.
Beautiful little guy there you got.
Yes, thank you very much. So a lot of parents, when they come in and they bring their child, they can't believe, they're all nervous, but they can't believe how quick and easy, you know, the adjustment can be. So I'm just going to go through and show you a little bit of like how we check the spine first.
Very cool.
So I'm going to lay him down here. I don't know if you can see him yet. I'll take my time. But as the baby lays on the table, a lot of times you'll see even your medical doctor will bend the legs and they'll check, you know, the hip joints, and that's just a natural thing that we like to check to make sure that there's no congenital hip disease. That's what it checks for, which is when the leg joints aren't formed properly up into the hip.
You could feel that?
You can definitely feel that. You can feel like that the hip just kind of slides out of the joint. So we check that naturally. If the parent doesn't want the baby laying or they're afraid the baby will fuss a little bit, we can always have the mother hold the baby. Dominic's kind of used to being adjusted, so I'm used to adjusting him. So if he cries a little bit, it's fine for me. But I'm trying to do it so everybody can see. You kind of just feel down their neck, and you can feel one side, a little lump, as opposed to the other side. Like I said before, some babies come in and their head's always twisted to one side, so that tends to be the side where the misalignment is. When we want to check their back, we can roll them over, and we can lay them on their side and just feel down their spine. I should do it the other way, actually.
Hi, buddy.
He gave you a look.
Yeah, he did.
But you can feel down their spine and just see what you're feeling, if anything's moving. You can see he gets kind of a little peaceful at this time. He kind of likes it. It's a little massage for a baby, and infant massage is wonderful. It gets the mother bonded with the baby, and it also, you know, helps the baby tremendously because they're a little sore from going through their everyday trauma. Another way we palpate, like I was saying, they're flexible, and you want to feel the motion in their spine, so you can bend them up. He likes this part. You feel the motion in their lumbar spine. We do this for children that are having some bowel problems. Okay? So you can actually, if they're a little bit blocked up and you feel the motion in their lumbar spine, there's always something that's a little fixated down here. Now the adjustment itself, and I'll sit him up to show you, because he always has an atlas, that's first vertebra that's misaligned on the right side. And all we do, if you can see my finger, is I hold a little pressure here for a couple seconds, and he usually gives a little grunt, and he's done. That's really it for an infant adjustment. And there's
just a little bit of pressure like that makes a difference?
A little bit of pressure, yeah. It's kind of like if you were just, you know, washing a plum off or something. It's really, it does make a difference. And you know, you can go back, we always wait about 3 to 5 seconds, maybe even, you know, 20 seconds, and we double check, and he's fine.
So you can actually feel a difference before and after from a chiropractic.
From a chiropractic's point of view, you got to remember we're trained to feel the muscles and the bones in the body, any type of inflammation or, you know, changes in the joint. So you can definitely feel. Now at the office too, we have an instrument that we use for children. That will actually we use for the upper cervical spine, and it tests the heat differential from side to side behind the ears of the first vertebra.
And why would that be different?
Well, sometimes what happens is when the atlas misaligns, well, it's all the time what happens. When the first vertebra misaligns, which is what happens with most children, it's hotter on one side, the side that it's misaligned to. And they found that through some research. So when we hold the pressure point and you retake that heat reading, what happens is it balances out and the heat reading's even on both sides. So you can actually see, like on paper, that there has been some change.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Now, let's say, for example, that Dominic didn't have an adjustment for that misaligned top vertebrae, the atlas. What's going to happen to him as years progress?
Well, as the twig is crooked, so grows the tree, right? You know, if that's left, you know, misaligned or subluxated for years to come, he might grow up getting headaches, going through a growth spurt, getting scoliosis. He might end up, we've seen major differences with children that have ADHD, changes with children who are autistic. Not that it's going to cure that, but we've seen really good changes where amazing, I think we've talked about the other time, where they've been a little bit calmer, they could sleep through the night, ear infections. The first thing I do when my child has an ear infection is I usually adjust them.
Really?
You know, maybe even twice a day, depending. I'll check them in the morning, and if I check them at night and it's back out, I will adjust them again.
say you find something wrong in the lower part of the spine. Is it just the same thing, just the pressure point, or
It is the same.
is the adjustment what you actually showed with the moving of the legs?
Well, that can actually adjust the spine, naturally. If you don't feel like there has been a change, you can hold pressure to the one side. He had a little bit of blockage when he was about 2 weeks old, where he was having trouble going to the bathroom, and he actually did have a misalignment of his last lumbar vertebra, and I just laid him on his side, and I just held him in this position for a couple minutes with my finger, and you can see right on his little dimple there, I would hold it, and lo and behold, about a day later, he was pretty much regular.
So this is never painful.
No.
I mean, if a child's crying, it's because it's just...
Right, it's because a stranger's holding them, or they're hungry, or he's not in pain right now. You can tell he's kicking and gooing at you.
That's pretty happy to me. And that doesn't happen when many children look at this mug, I'll tell you right now. Here's another important question, especially with the economy and the way things are today. Does insurance cover this for kids?
For some insurances do cover it. We do have family fees in the office, so if the parents are getting adjusted, the children are usually free. So it just depends on your situation. But I feel, and Dr. John also himself feels, that getting a child adjusted is very important. So we would never, put a boundary up for someone to come with price.
Right. So you can just come with your child and your appointment at the same time. They don't need a special appointment. Is there a special table or anything you use?
No. Actually, like I said, the mother can hold the baby, or usually in the office the mother holds the baby, or we put them in their car seat, or I lay them on the adjustment table, and the mother holds them, steady while I check what I have to check.
We're keeping Dominic awake.
Yeah, I know. He wants
I think
to
we
go
better
to sleep.
take a break so we can put him to bed. What do you say? We're going to take a quick break, like I said. If you have any questions, you can certainly call them in as well. 454-2474 is the number for the Degenhardt Chiropractic Health Center. And when we come back, we're going to continue talking about children, but some practical tips that you can use to make sure that your children are on a path toward wellness as far as the spine and neck are concerned. We'll talk about that right after the break. Welcome back to Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WYLN. Our topic tonight is children and chiropractic, infants and chiropractic. And getting back a little bit to why it's necessary, I guess a lot of physicians out there might think if a child's experiencing pain, they might say, it's just a growth spurt. Nothing to worry about. Your comments to that would be what?
Sometimes children do go through growth spurts. I have no doubts about that. I mean, they grow. But a lot of the times a child will come in and they've been to their family doctor. The mother doesn't know why the pain continues. A growth spurt should only last, a week to 2 weeks, the pain from a growth spurt. And then again, it's usually on both sides. If it's pain only on one side, like one knee, we tend to check their spine and find that their pelvis is out of alignment. The pain in the knee goes away. So growth spurt maybe, but most importantly, if their spine is out of alignment when they go through a growth spurt, that's how scoliosis starts.
Another thing dawned on me actually while we're talking during the break is that if a child's born with a hearing problem, they might live their whole life and not know they have a hearing problem because it's the only way they've ever known how to hear. So is this the same thing with pain? Could a child live with pain for years and not know that they have pain? You know what I mean?
Right. If it's something that they're constantly, used to, just like some children are raised, on soy milk. They don't know the difference between soy milk and regular milk. I've had patients come in, high school kids or even adults come in, and they're coming for low back, and we check up their spine and we say, you have a misalignment in your neck. Should we take care of that too today? And they say, okay. You adjust them, and they don't even realize. They'll literally say to you, wow, I never even knew that hurt until now it feels so good. Yeah. So an adult can be that way. Of course, a child can be that way.
Okay. Whenever we talk about kids on the show, we often talk about scoliosis. And so let's talk about that a little bit. Could these preventative adjustments have an effect on scoliosis and preventing it?
Sure. There are two types of scoliosis. There's a functional scoliosis and a structural scoliosis, okay?
And scoliosis is
a curvature of the spine where actually, and I'll show you this right here, the spine itself should be, if you look on it straight on, should be straight. What happens with the scoliosis is you get a curve.
Oh,
okay?
from side to side?
From side to side. So, you know, you might look at someone and their one shoulder will be higher, their other hip will be higher. They probably have somewhat of a scoliosis. What happens is most scoliosis, well, all scoliosis start out as functional, whereas, you know, there's a misalignment in the spine and one of the muscles is shortened or lengthened because of it, and the body itself, as it grows slightly crooked, just like I said, so grows the tree, crooked. Yeah. That is a functional scoliosis. If you catch it right away, make the adjustment, the muscle spasm in there relaxes and the spine can straighten out.
Okay.
If it is not caught, then what happens is the spine starts to curve more. You'll get an extra curve to compensate, because the whole goal of the body is to keep the eyes level, so you'll end up with a full S curve and it becomes structural, which means it's really at the point where you can't get full correction out of it. You might get some, but not full.
Okay, that's when you need surgery.
Well, no, surgery is only really for people that have a scoliosis of 27 degrees or more.
Oh,
okay?
okay.
So not everybody needs rods and all that. But you can see, you know, if you've ever seen someone that's older that has a scoliosis and, you know, their spine's a little bit twisted, that's because they had a functional one that wasn't taken care of.
Okay, 30 seconds. We want to talk a little bit about prevention. Tips for parents that they can do to prevent problems for their kids. What could they do?
Well, number one, infants themselves, you know, changing their diapers. We tend to lift straight up when we change their diapers. That can, even though you saw me doing that with the adjustment, you know, it's not a chiropractic adjustment when you change a diaper. It's better to turn the legs to the side a little bit and wipe from the side. Also taking off the onesie for even toddlers. Don't lift the shirt with both their hands over their heads, and you ever see the shirt get stuck?
Yeah.
That can cause a little misalignment for toddlers.
And don't sleep on the stomach.
Don't sleep on the belly, and one pillow if you're going to sleep, and watch the Nintendo backs or the Wii backs.
That's the best advice of all. Don't sleep on the stomach. We've said it a lot. Thanks for the tips, and thanks for bringing your little one in.
Oh, well, thank you.
Congratulations on that. And thanks for watching Let's Talk Chiropractic. We'll see you next time. Take care. Let's say you're injured in a car accident or injured while you're at work. What should you do? There's a lot of questions you have, a lot of uncertainty, and you just don't know where to turn. Well, we're going to answer some of your questions right here on Let's Talk Chiropractic tonight. I'm Rick Marticelli. We're glad you joined us. I'm here as always with Dr. Stacy Sando and Dr. John Degenhart from the Degenhart Chiropractic Health Center. How are both of you?
Wonderful.
Great.
Doing well?
Very good.
Fall treating you well? We told everyone how to be healthy last time, after all.
never treat you well.
That's a good point. Is autumn treating you well?
Autumn is treating us wonderfully.
That's good. That's good.
I think because I grew in this part of the country, but I enjoy the change of seasons.
I do too. It's
So I'm
nice.
looking forward to a nice, cool fall.
I've never experienced the whole summer in Florida, but they say you don't get used to that heat. I don't know. So 4 seasons, we'll take it, right?
Right.
That's true.
Mountains.
We have a lot of tips for people tonight too as well. Injuries at work, with a car accident, things like that. People do have a lot of questions. You're going to kind of talk about what they should do if they experience a problem.
Though, Rick, you and I have talked about this show in the past, I just thought it was a good show to bring up because unfortunately people are always having work-related injuries, car accidents, and they come in our office, Rick, if it's their first car accident or first injury at work, they just don't know what are the rules.
Yeah.
So I thought let's go over the rules as to do I need an attorney, when do I need to see a chiropractor, just to educate the public.
Sounds good. We'll do car accidents first right after the break. If you have any questions, we invite you to email them to us, drjohn@epix.net. That's the email address. And we come back. Car accidents, tips for you, what you should do if you're unfortunately involved in one. Stay with us. We'll be back. Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk Chiropractic right here on WILN. Our topics tonight: car accidents and injuries at work. Some tips for you on what you should do, your rights, your responsibilities, things that could make you feel better in the long run. So let's start with car accidents, and let's just take a scenario. Let's say you're involved in a car accident. What is the absolute first thing you should do?
I usually recommend always go to the hospital. I mean, the option is there for you. Go get the x-rays, have them evaluate you, make sure that there's nothing more serious going on. Remember, they say research has shown even an accident 5 to 7 miles per hour can cause more damage than one at 60 miles an hour.
Really?
They've done research where they've put people in cars and geared them up, and I don't know who signed up for that. But they have found with that research project that can happen. So get your x-rays, and then from there, see what you need to do next.
Let's say you're experiencing pain despite having x-rays that come back negative. Chances are you're going to be given a prescription for some sort of medication for that, right, Dr. John?
Right. Most patients will go to the hospital, Rick, and they'll come to our office, and they're given a script for, say, muscle relaxers, painkillers, maybe anti-inflammatories. But the doctors overall will say it's just a soft tissue strain. And the patient will say, I could tell it's more than just my muscles. Mm-hmm. So on our x-ray, Rick, we look at an x-ray, maybe you'll see the vertebrae, let's say it was a whiplash. Mm-hmm. The vertebrae are misaligned, and you feel, yeah, doc, the patients can feel the bones misaligned.
Really?
So when you get them to realize that only the chiropractor, our specialty, is to palpate, which means feel, and look at an x-ray to see what's misaligned. So all too often in a hospital, x-rays are taken to see if there's a fracture, maybe even cancer. CAT scan or MRIs might be taken to see if there's any kind of tumors, but to actually see the misalignment, right, that's the biggest missing ingredient of when you go to a hospital. So Stacy's right, you go to the hospital, but they don't detect the real problem.
Okay.
So then they come to us. So our dream is to try to get patients that are ever in a car accident, at least go to a chiropractor once to make sure that things are put back in place.
Is it possible that, say, after a car accident, you're not feeling any problems, then a couple months down the road you might experience some symptoms from that car accident that happened weeks and months ago?
Sure, they say up to 2 years after an accident, problems can start occurring. Remember, at the time of an accident, your body's pumped with a ton of adrenaline. So, and that can last for a week even. And then from there, your body can compensate. So some people have come in 6 months after a car accident. I don't know why I'm all of a sudden getting these headaches. We take an x-ray, their vertebrae's moved out of alignment, and we can always correlate it back to that accident.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Jean, does every car accident result in a subluxation, a problem with your spine?
Not every. I think there are sometimes, I would say the majority, it does. But there are some accidents, if the patient's really in good tone, and maybe it's not, and Stacy was right before, it doesn't have to be, Rick, like a 30-mile-an-hour accident. But there are a lot of times I'll tell the patient, they'll come in, I'll check their leg length, it's level. Muscle tone's good, palpate good, I say thank you. At least we checked your spine, but that is the minority. The majority of people, Rick, as you just said, they take their painkillers, so they numb their pain, and then they come to us 6 or 8 months later, and then it's very hard to call that insurance company and say that the headaches, the dizziness, the numbness in their arms today is due to that accident way back then. The car insurance looks for what they call a trail of care. So if I'm in a car accident, I go to my medical doctor, I take his pills, but then I stop seeing anybody because I'm just taking pills. And 6 months later, then I go to the chiropractor. The car insurance is afraid of fraud. They start calling me saying, well, how do you know that this guy didn't fall on his ice at home or didn't get hurt at work, and is just trying to get us as a car insurance to pay for it? So that's why the advice is go to, as soon as you can, to the chiropractor. We will let them know, Rick, if it's good, don't get checked. But if there is something misaligned, which there normally is, start care so the car insurance won't have any doubts on what's going on.
Okay. Here's some questions that we have from people who have called in about car accidents over the week, and this person wants to know if their premium will go up if they seek medical care after a car accident.
No, the premium never goes up for medical care.
No?
No.
Or if that patient, just to be the other advocate, if that person is the cause, Rick, of 2 or 3 accidents within 1 year, like say if I was drinking and driving, and I caused 2 or 3 accidents, then my premium goes sky high. But if I am hit by someone else 2 or 3 times, and I seek medical care, premiums will never go up.
Okay. How about this caller wants to know if you need a referral to see a chiropractor after a motor vehicle accident?
No, with an auto accident, you can go see whatever doctors you need to see. It's your call, your option. And then again, even if you come to us and we feel like you need something else, we can refer you for the X-rays. We can refer you to physical therapy or whatever we think you need.
How about the timing from the accident itself? You ever see people that have come right from an accident to your office? Do you have that? Really?
I think, Rick, people who are first-time car accident people do the routine we just spoke of. They will go to the hospital. Maybe the second time. And Rick, after a while, I mean this in all respect to hospitals, but maybe the third. Remember, the average American is in about it's increasing every year, 5.8 accidents now per lifetime. So after the third or fourth accident, Rick, I think they say, you know what? I'm going to go directly to my chiropractor because we have an X-ray machine. If we have to take the X-ray, we can see if there is a fracture. But the main goal, Rick, is they're tired of going through 10 X-rays, CAT scans, MRIs, medications, and then coming to us anyway. So a lot of people will now see us directly because they've been under our care before, and usually, again, you take that X-ray, you find it misaligned, Rick, and we can directly take care of them rather than having all of this other stuff going on anyway.
From the patient's perspective, the sooner they get there, the better the outcome?
The better, yes, because less inflammation can occur. As soon as you get in there and the bone just moved out of alignment, we can get it back in, keep the inflammation down, keep the compensatory muscles from spasming up on them, and prevent further injury. Because if you're walking around with the misalignment for so long, your body can actually become more injured, and you can get more pain from that.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, and we talked about it before on the show, is that when you have an injury, previously I should say, when we talk about medication and stuff, we're never bashing medication. There's a reason for it, and in this case, there is probably a reason for medication as well if you're experiencing pain. Talk about that a little bit.
My rule of thumb, Rick, is when you cannot sleep. If Dr. Stacy's in a car accident and she's unable to sleep, then I tell my patient, if the doctor, because people will say to me, I'm having a stomach reaction, or I'm getting constipated from my Darvocet. What do you think? I said, well, call your doctor. But if you cannot sleep, I strongly recommend you follow his advice. If they're sleeping pretty good, Rick, and their pain's not that bad and having side effects, I said, call your doctor, discuss it with him. My gut feeling, if it was myself, if I'm doing pretty good and the medications are giving me bad side effects, I would not take them. I would rather than let my body heal naturally, because if I'm able to sleep, because during sleep, Rick, it's such a restorative healing process. And if the patient cannot sleep, I'd rather them medicate the body and sleep, which then helps our work to hold in position even better.
Okay, very good. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking about car accidents. If you have any questions, you can email them